This last general policy board meeting, technical advisory committee meetings were held in April and May. Topics discussed at the two meetings included program, project and funding updates that were provided on the Clean Ohio Program, Economic Development Program, broadband, the Appalachian Regional Commission, Ohio Public Works Commission program. Information was also provided on Eastgate's EV charging infrastructure plan in the upcoming public participation open house for the 2024 to 27 Transportation Improvement Program. General Policy Board Resolution 789-2023 were reviewed by the committee. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Citizens Advisory Board, Samantha Yanucci.
Hey everyone, sorry I can't make it in person. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So this is the Citizens Advisory Board report for today, June 5th, 2023. Since the last General Policy Board meeting, the Citizens Advisory Board met in April and May. In April, the board meeting took place following the public meeting for the fiscal year 24 to 27 Transportation Improvement Program. Stephen Zubik presented a detailed explanation of the document and the projects that were identified. At the May meeting, Eastgate's Justin Moondock presented and detailed the draft version of the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Details were shared about the background of the document, the purpose of the planning process, and the federal requirements for conformity. The CAB reviewed and approved resolutions number 007-2023, 008-2023, and 009-2023 this past quarter. The CAB is scheduled to meet on July 6th and will include a discussion on updates on broadband projects around the region led by Mark Ragazine and Steve Kristen. This concludes the report for the Citizens Advisory Board. Any questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
On the Finance Executive Committee, we met this morning and discussed the Eastgate Statement of Revenues, Expenditures, and fiscal year 2024 proposed budget. We also discussed the agency's current financial status, which included all financial forms from January through April 30th. The agency still remains in sound financial standing. We also discussed a recap of the 2023 annual meeting, which I see Justin's here. I just want to give a shout out to him. You did an amazing job emceeing the event.
All right.
Well. To the rest of the Eastgate staff to put that together, that was a great presentation. Our community investment fund projects were discussed. The housing assessment strategy was discussed. Personnel updates and upcoming conference dates were all discussed. Any questions on the Finance Committee? All right, thank you. Moving forward into the business meeting, we'll start off with Eastgate's Metropolitan Transportation Plan. I'll have Justin up and go over that.
Thanks, Matt. And thanks for the kind words. Before I jump into the MTP, Jim sends his regrets he couldn't be here, probably still kind of grieving over the Celtics loss, but you know, he did want me to cover just a few things. Pat just mentioned it, our annual meeting, we had over 200 people in attendance, just a tremendous response. But to echo Pat's statements, a special thanks to the staff for really putting in a lot of time and effort to make that event as worthwhile as possible. Also on the housing assessment and strategy, looking to post an RFP for that in the next couple of weeks here. So that process will be moving forward. We're going to take a look at the entirety of Mahoning and Trumbull counties, do a market value analysis, and come up with some strategy implementation recommendations for the region that local communities can take and kind of implement in your own ways. So we'll try and make that as comprehensive as possible and as streamlined as possible as well, so it's not kind of a chore to pick through and figure out what's worthwhile. On the I-80 State Route 304 possible interchange, I want to make a note that we're planning to host a stakeholder meeting in early summer with the intention to conduct a feasibility study as that first step towards understanding what potential solutions in the area. So more to come about that in the next couple of weeks. And then moving along to the Appalachian Community Grant Program, which you'll hear a lot more about, but the Mahoning River project has already gotten some work underway. We have our procured consultant on board through the Governor's Office of Appalachia, so holding individual meetings with each community along the river to figure out priorities and where those most likely opportunities for success will come from. And then there's a lake to river project. It used to be called the logistics corridor, but we're kind of shifting its primary focus a little bit, focusing from Ashtabula down to Columbiana County on mega site development. We have the consultant situation figured out for that project. It was a long, kind of drawn out situation where there were a lot of questions coming from the state, but we smoothed everything over. That's moving along nicely. A little bit on another aspect of kind of the Mahoning River project is this repopulation effort. You've heard Jim talk about it a lot. I think it's gotten picked up in some of the local media quite a bit. We also have Emil, our consultant, on board to handle the strategy for that. So work is progressing where he's getting into contact with not only local, state, and national entities, but other nonprofits and NGOs to figure out best practices on how do you approach population stabilization? What are those strategies? And then coalescing around the 3 Rs, the retain people, stop them from leaving, return individuals who have left, so that boomerang effect. And then what's the opportunity for receiving people that are coming from different localities, whether that's from overseas or other metro areas of the United States. The Power Coalition, which is a collaborative approach for providing water and power to users of regions, had their initial kickoff meeting May 9th. Had 21 people in attendance, and they're intending to build off that momentum with greater attendance at the second meeting, which you could all write down is June 22nd. So we hope many of you join us there for that second meeting for the Power Coalition. And then lastly, the last bullet point Jim wanted me to mention was that we'll be participating in the DC fly-in. So we're going to support all of our regional partners' priority requests for the federal government, as well as including our potential, or not necessarily potential, but we will be putting in an application to the RAISE grant program for elements of the Live Zone project again later this summer. So we'll be down there tomorrow and in the next couple of days, meeting with our federal representatives and federal department heads to make sure they know where we're standing in that region. So to jump into the MTP, it's been a long process, but we're finally here. This is the final draft. We had our public comment period that wrapped up at the end of or middle of last month. We've addressed all those comments and included them in the document itself. Worked with our friends at ODOT to make sure that we have all the puzzle pieces in place, the right direction, the right orientation, all that language figured out so that we're ready to roll. But I do want to pull it up on our website and go through just a handful of things. So under our transportation programs, we have a page dedicated specifically to the MTP. And you can find the document with that big green button there. So I'll try not to make anyone seasick by scrolling too much. But I know we've talked a lot about this over the last 2+ years going through the development process. And I really kind of want to just pay attention to the table of contents because I think this is the most comprehensive way to look at this document and find what is really critical. So executive summary just kind of lays the foundation of who we are, who our region is, why this document matters and what it does for us. So it talks through a lot of the planning context. It talks through a lot of kind of the federal criteria that we have to abide by for our requirements and guidelines. And then we go through some introduction. We get some deeper look into some of our local data and kind of what the existing conditions are for our region. And then when we get into the goals and objectives piece, that's where this document really starts to kind of push forward. So in order to kind of align ourselves better with other planning efforts that are ongoing. So the federal government, USDOT, outlines their existing kind of priorities. So we took a look at that and put down what we could and formatted it in a way that made sense for our local context. Then we looked at our partner agencies across the state, so the NOACAs, the EMS, the TMACOGs, the OKIs. What are their MTPs saying? Is there something we need to pay attention to that they're doing that we're not necessarily thinking about? So we pulled in the information from their goals and objectives, and kind of really wrapped it up by going into ODOT's Access Ohio 2045 plan, which is the state's long-range transportation plan. Pulling all of that together, making sure it all makes sense for where we are in this moment in time as we look out to the year 2050. So we came up with these goals. We've been through them quite a bit, so no need to dig in too deeply. But this section of the document really kind of just goes into depth and detail about each of these goals, how our work ties into all of it, and how it will tie in the coming years. So a lot of this sets the stage for our coming work programs. So that's something that Ken has in the past and Stephen in the future will go through as we're developing those work programs, figuring out what projects and what direction our work will take us. So scroll back up here. Our table of contents again. So as we go through, another critical element of this document is fiscal constraint. We cannot plan for projects that we won't have money for. It's as simple as that. So as we reached out to you to figure out what your priorities were in terms of projects that you think you will be conducting over the next couple years through the year 2050, we need to make sure that all of that fits into the pot of money that we'll have over that time period, or at least the expected pot of money we'll have. So under this funding category, we kind of break down the funding sources, which is all information that you're all very familiar with because you live in this work day in and day out. But it's all here if you kind of need a place to go to take a look and see what's available. And then we look at that revenue and we come up with this forecast methodology. So we look at past funding years, both for highway and transit funds. And we come up with an average of funding that we have available to us in each fiscal year. We use that average to project out through the year 2050. So the model that we've used for the past several MTPs is what we've stuck with for this one again. There's a number of different ways that you could approach this, but we believe that if we could stick with a conservative funding methodology, considering that our region hasn't changed a whole lot over the last several iterations of this document, we felt keeping with the same funding projection model made sense, where we project out an initial 2% growth rate for our short-term projects and then remain flat out through 2050. So we're not making any kind of overexcited exaggerations of what our funding could possibly be. If we projected that out 2% every year into 2050, we'd be playing with a boatload of money that likely isn't going to. So remained pretty conservative on the funding side, but that's how this all kind of comes in. So then we pull in all the projects that you submitted to us through our project request process sometime last year, and figured out, does this make sense over the time period that we're planning for with the funding that we're expecting? And yes, we're well within our funding estimations. So we have some information on the projects, and then we get into the project lists, which are included in this document, and no need to go through that in detail. So as we start to get to the end here, there's information on implementation and monitoring strategy. These are our performance measures. These are what we track every year. These are how we track performance on safety and congestion and air quality. So there's detailed information there. It's information you've seen in other documents that we produce, like the TIP and in our performance measures reports. So all of that is there. We also do an environmental justice analysis and a Title VI analysis on all of our projects. So that's ensuring that these projects aren't negatively impacting the most vulnerable people in the region. So all of that data is in there. There's been a lot of back-end kind of data analysis and GIS done by our great GIS staff. So many thanks to them for pulling that information together. And then the last portion of this document is our appendices. And this is kind of where the more procedural stuff comes in that helps us become compliant and make sure that this document fulfills all of the requirements that are set forth by Federal Highway and US DOT. So we start off with an acronym glossary. There's an alphabet soup in this document that many of you may be familiar with, but you may come across something that you're like, That's a arrangement that I've never seen before. So hopefully it's in that glossary. We try to do our best and catch everyone. We once again go through the requirements of what a long-range transportation plan has to include from the federal government. And we make sure that we address each one of those to show that we are compliant on all of those requirements. We detail our public participation process. So this is essentially just showing that we've gone through a proper public participation process that ensures the voice of the community in this planning document. We document all of that as our public engagement, including the comments that we received through our comment period over the last month or so. And then we have our resolution. So once this document is passed by this body here, we'll include that. And then we have our air quality conformity and our FHWA conformity letter that we'll receive after that process concludes, following approval by this board. A lot of information, big document. Any questions, any thoughts? You know, we've gone over it quite a bit over the last several months and especially over the last couple of years, but last chance to ask a question before the Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. All right, any questions for Justin? All right, moving forward, Appalachian Community Grant Program, Kathy Zook.
Okay, well, I want to take this opportunity to give you an update on some of the progress that we have been making on the Appalachian Community Grant Program, which I will call ACGP. And you may recall that this program was created by the Ohio Legislature and Governor DeWine with the signing of House Bill 377, and that was just signed last June. So these are federal dollars. They are ARPA funds of the American Recovery Program Act. And with that, they come with the federal criteria that is tied to that legislation in addition to House Bill 377. So with ARPA, of course, I had to deal with COVID. We are looking for projects that demonstrate how was our region negatively impacted by COVID and how will this project improve it? And then also related to COVID is projects that show strong, resilient, and equitable investments to help our region continue to have economic growth. So there's a lot of information and criteria involved in ARPA that's also on our website. But for House Bill 377, we have 3 areas that we're focusing on, and that is downtown revitalization, improving community health, and rebuilding our local workforce. So examples of downtown revitalization, that would be connecting our trails and our outdoor community spaces, providing links to our items that are of historical nature, our culture, and access to the arts. And then also we're looking for like large scale economic development sites. As far as community health, these projects would focus on school or community-based services that would help us to improve the mental and physical health of our communities. We can also look at projects that focus on substance use disorder, like recovery to work, and then school-based health clinics. And then with rebuilding our local workforce, those are projects that focus on public-private partnerships to build efforts to make sure the workforce has elements needed to secure jobs and like clinical, educational, and technical fields. Now, with the project criteria, we are really looking for projects that are regional in scope, so more than one community, certainly multiple counties would be ideal, that is transformational to the region. We are looking for them to be evidence-based and economically sustainable, and then of course involving the public-private partnership. The goal of this program is to ensure that Appalachia is a place that folks will want to come and live and work and raise a family. So it needs to be visible in tangible projects. And here we are 4 months into round 1. Sometimes it seems like an eternity. But round 1, the focus on that is planning. So there was $30 million that was allocated to planning grants, and services that would be included in that would be like for engineering, architecture, design, and grant writing. And for, there is no cost to the applicant for developing these plans. And the Ohio Controlling Board is providing assistance with our procured planners. There was 20 that were competitively selected. That was back in February of 23. And those planners are working along with Eastgate and our communities to develop those planning grants. Planning grants will generally take about up to 1 year to complete. And interested applicants could go on to the Appalachian Community website and fill out what we call the Request a Planner form. That form was available from February 27th and just recently closed on May 17th. From there, the Governor's Office of Appalachia reviews the requests, making sure hopefully that it aligns with ARPA and House Bill 377, and GOA will assign the procured planner for the project, and then the planner reaches out to the applicant or community to begin that. Folks cannot directly come out or contact the planners. That has to come through the assignment of GOA. And certainly in the last several months, Eastgate and the planners have been working with our local communities, as Justin mentioned, a few of the projects that we're working on during this planning process. The state has indicated that their preference is really to see maybe 5 to 6 large, what we're calling mega development grants. They really do not want to administer $100 million grants. And I can't blame them on that. So to ease their capacity, as we're moving through this process, you'll see these projects that will come under one umbrella. So we've been working remotely and independently and oftentimes in person, but we really felt that it was time to regroup again with the planners, governor's office, and the local development districts to monitor our progress and just make sure we're on the right path. So we took advantage of the Appalachian State of the Region Conference that was held at Ohio University. That was on May 23rd. And we had what we called our program partnership meeting to refresh. And so we had members there from the Ohio Budget Management, Governor's Office of Appalachia, 4 local development districts, and all 20 procured planners. It was an excellent meeting. We were able to share information on eligible projects, maybe non-eligible projects. And then we had maps on the wall with each local development district. And it gave us an opportunity to visually see where are all these projects coming from. We actually mapped it out. The procured planners, they were assigned by the governor's office. And sometimes it made sense to maybe group them in a different, with a project with a different planner. So this really kept the dialogue going. And I think it helped streamline the process, which is ongoing. To give you an idea of some of the projects that we're working on within the Eastgate region, and Justin mentioned a couple. Certainly you're familiar with the River of Opportunity. That's within Trumbull and Mahoney County, involving about 9 communities. And then our Lake to River Port Mega Development Site project that is involving Ashtabula County as far as the deep sea port. And then, with our neighbors to the south in Columbiana County, they have the port there as well. So we want to connect that. We know, of course, during COVID, that the supply chain issue was a big problem. So this will combine maritime, freight, and rail so that we can improve the supply chain. And then we have the Tri-County Workforce Talent Retention that again is on repopulation and so forth. The regional chamber is heading up that one. And then we also have the Connecting Western Reserve Trails. That project is being spearheaded by the Trumbull County Metro Parks. And then we're also working with the Ashtabula Trails and Downtown Redevelopment Project, and that is headed up by the land banks in Ashtabula. So you can see we're touching all 3 areas of investment priorities within House Bill 377. And purpose of putting together this mega grant is so that we will score very highly on the rubrics that is also available online, but it's going to maximize our regional impact and our geographical impact as per the rubric. Projects that have more than 4 counties involved will score higher, and certainly our project will take that into account with Trumbull, Mahoning, Ashtabula, and then grouping in Columbia County. And it will hit all 3 investment priorities. Round 2 will be forthcoming. We see that being announced in November of 2023. And that, of course, is anticipated. They're subject to change, but this is the timeline that we're working on now. With the announcement, if it comes in November of 23, we'll have the applications being due in December of 23, and then award of early 2024. And some dates to keep in mind as we're putting our plans together, we really need to have the plans completed by October of 23, so that when we have the announcement of round 2, we'll hit the ground running and be able to jump right into a development grant. And I think we're on a good pace for that. And then as for the ARPA legislation, all projects must be completed by October of 2026. That is a pretty fast timeline. But I think with our procure planners, they really have a focus on that timeline. I believe that we'll be able to secure those projects and have it accomplished by that time. So that's the information that I have for you on our Appalachian Community Grant Program. And if there's any questions, I'm glad to help. Okay, then. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy. Next up, I'm going to ask Steve Kristen to come up and give us a regional broadband update.
Thank you, Pat.
Imagine a region where children had to go to McDonald's in the afternoon to get public Wi-Fi to do their homework because they didn't have Wi-Fi at home. Imagine a world where we have seniors in this county that can't take advantage of telehealth because they don't have internet or know how to use it, and their health is suffering. Imagine people in this region that may be single parents and want to get a job and work out of the home to raise some money to support their family, and they can't do that because they don't have internet, and they want to have a nanny cam to check on their kids, but they can't do that. Imagine a world where you have housing values that are 3 to 5% lower because there's no internet in that community. I go on and on and on. That world that we talk about is present here in our region. What I want to do is talk to you a little bit what I would call the 5 W's of broadband in our region: the who, what, where, when, and why. And then I will have some time later for questions if you want. See me later today. I also want to say that when we look at this, this is not about one person. It's an entire team effort. Mark does a lot of the heavy lifting. Justin, besides being a great MC, he also does a lot of planning, has a lot of expertise in planning. And we see some of our regional partners, such as Anna right here, has helped a lot as well as with Nick and JP. And Kathy's been great for ACP or ARC. And even Lisa in the back running the slides. Oh, she's not here anymore, but she does a great job. So anyhow, let's talk about the importance of broadband. Okay, what we're talking about is something that came up several years ago with COVID. We found out that there's issues with online learning, telehealth, economic development, all those impacted because of COVID. And it really brought to light the importance of broadband. Broadband went from a nice to have to an important to have to now it's a utility, or more importantly, a necessity. Our goal here is to eliminate the digital divide. I like to say I'd like to have 3 options for every single house here in our region. And that includes rural and urban. And when we talk about broadband, we look at it in three different ways. We look at accessibility, do you have access to it? We look at affordability, can you afford it? And then the adoption, do you know how to use it? Do you have the equipment to use it? Right now, we are in a great opportunity in this country. There is tremendous amount of funding available for broadband, and we're targeting going after that. You heard Kathy talk about ARPA. ARPA money is still available, and there's a lot of money out there for ARPA, from ARPA. There's the IIJA. Not only is there middle mile dollars, there's also 42.5 billion, and that's B with, as in Bravo, that's being divided among the states. And then you have the ACP program, the Affordable Connectivity Program, which we've pushed heavily in our region. In fact, so much so that Youngstown, the mayor was invited last year to go at a press conference at the White House because Youngstown's done so well in enrolling people. Now, this ties back to the feasibility study. You may remember that. Shout out to Trumbull County, who said, let's do a study on broadband. And then Mark and Justin and Eastgate said, you know what, let's expand that to include a regional view. And there are about 10 different recommendations, and we're knocking those off. These are just some of them. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But the idea is there is planning being done, there's being studies being done, and then execution. Right now, we're very excited about our partnership with Broadband Ohio. So what the federal government did, they said for us to give out all that money, we have to have state entities to kind of control it, monitor it, to divvy it out. You realize here at Eastgate how important Broadband Ohio is, and we've done a lot to create a good partnership with them. They are distributing dollars as we speak right now, and we're hopeful we'll get some more dollars coming down the pike with them. But we've done a lot of different things in partnerships. Peter Voderberg's been here, the head actually of Innovate Ohio, which is John Houston. He's been here. We're seeing more visits of Peter and so forth. So we're really building a collaboration effort to help our region at a state level. The big kahuna, as Mark likes to say, is our lake to river fiber. And this is taking State Route 11 and putting fiber along there through an ODOT project. But more importantly, it ties into a bigger picture. The state needs to have a loop around the entire state. So Broadband Ohio, ORNet, which is the Ohio Academic Research Network, which ties into schools, and Eastgate got together to put in, it's a $140 million project. We went to the government asking for over 70 million. And our piece is this area right in here, which is our lake to river. And I say that because that's an important piece, but it ties in as a bigger part of the loop around the state. We've applied to what they call the NTIA. We're expecting a result, an answer back sometime maybe as soon as this month. It's supposed to be March. It's got delayed a little bit. We're excited about that. But in light of that, we know how important this is that we're actually doing a plan B. We still expect to get some money for this, get it funded, but plan B is we're taking some short-term monies from the state to do a preliminary engineering analysis, which Mark got the copy of the final or the rough draft this week, and we're going through that. What that'll allow us to do, that's more of the detail from the engineering analysis. So where do you put the fiber? Where do you have connecting points along the route? And so we are going to be more shovel ready than any other project in Ohio. So now let's take a look at the counties. There's a ton of things going on. I can talk to you offline if you want, but we've got a lot of things going on in each of the counties. We did go after an NTIA grant 2 years ago. We were not successful, but nobody in Ohio was successful from that standpoint in terms of getting money. But what we did is we learned what we could do is tweak the things and then make the next grant application even better. And it's interesting for Ashtabula, because Ashtabula is pretty common and typical in the sense that there's parts of Ashtabula that have multiple providers for fiber to the home in Ashtabula, but there's areas that have no fiber, don't have internet. So what we have to do is when we go after these projects, we have to identify the areas that really need to be served. They have no service now, and not so much focus on the served areas. Let's go after the unserved. We do have a wireless project going because I like to say we are technology agnostic. We don't care if it's fiber, if it's internet, brought by wireless at this point. We've got to bring internet to the people that don't have it. We've got a pilot program, which we're going to touch about in a minute. And then there's a couple other grants work with Connect Ohio, with Connect Humanity. So this is an interesting pilot program. What we did is we took 3 and expanded to 4 townships in Ashtabula that have no internet. We used ARPA money, the county commissioners voted ARPA money to pilot with a company called OTT, Ohio Transfer and Telecom, to provide internet to New Line, Lennox, Cherry Valley, Richmond Townships, and part of Bear Plant. And it is, let's try this. If this works, we can expand it. If not, we've learned, we've got people internet at a reasonable price, and we can move on. But we think it's going to be successful. They did beta testing 2 weeks ago. They started, they should be rolling out for full implementation later this week. In Trumbull County, again, we went after some residential broadband grant programs. The commissioners stepped up and offered to do some match money, as they did in the other counties. We also have the, there's a ARC planning grant that was given to connect some fiber from Niles to Warren. We're also in the process of finalizing RFP versus RFI for a wireless project in northern Trumbull. You know, there's 10 townships in northern Trumbull that need service. That would piggyback well off of what we're doing in southern Ashtabula with the wireless project. The other thing that's kind of neat is the second recommendation was out of the broadband feasibility study was to help promote low-cost internet programs such as the ACP. We've been assisting Oak Hill Collaborative in their initiatives over in Trumbull County. They partner with TMHA, they partner with TCAP, City of Warren, the library, and the Urban League to bring training and low-cost internet to people that the underserved areas. This is the route that we're looking at for the Niles project that I mentioned to connect. Niles started, the municipal electric company started a broadband project several years ago that kind of took a pause. This study from ARC, funded by ARC, is going to expand that to connect Warren, Niles, Wethersfield, and Howland to see what the art of the possible might be. And Mahoney County. Mahoney County's got a lot of things going on, right, Anna? So we also assisted them on a broadband grant application, residential broadband. Commissioner stepped up with match money. Again, we were not successful, but that's okay because it gave us some learnings. And from there, we've done some other things right now. We've looked at specific community surveys, because it's one thing for somebody to say, you know what, I have no internet. But what we want to do is identify where in those townships we have problems. Give an example of Springfield Township. So they talked to us, we did a community survey, and we identified neighborhoods within there. Now it's challenging for Springfield, which is similar to other townships, where you have different providers. You have Comcast in a certain piece of it, you have Armstrong in another piece of it, AT&T in another piece. How do you bring it all together? Because you still have folks there that have no internet. Despite 3 different providers, you have areas that have no internet. So how do you fix that? So we issued, the county's issued an RFI. We're in the process of looking at some results and we'll be making a decision on that, moving out and into the areas. And we're focused on providing service to areas that don't have it now. And surprisingly, there's a lot in Mahoney County. Also wanted to mention that if you're sitting there wondering, how can Eastgate help me? I'm trying to figure out some things. Mark and I are always willing to go out and talk to people, whatever it might be. These are just some examples of what we did within the last year or so. We went out and talked to a local city on their internet needs. They got a quote from the provider that seemed kind of high. We went in, looked at it, made some adjustments to them, made some suggestions on what internet, that was internal to that township or that city. We've also talked to some cities on small cell legislation. We've talked with townships on digital literacy and how you can improve the digital literacy. The one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to bring internet out to a community that doesn't have it and not provide training and support for it. So in Ashtabula, for that pilot project, we've got some contacts. We're working with the library to do some things and some other digital literacy classes. We talked with the wireless company, a regional company targeting Trumbull County and Mahoney County, but for businesses, 5G. to go after those areas. And we've assisted on some of those things. So again, we'll talk to people. If you're sitting out there, just say, you know what, I need some help on ACP for my school. Give us a call, or perhaps I got some ARPA money I got to spend. How do I allocate it? We can help you with that as well. As Kathy talked about, there's some deadlines coming. There's ways that you can move money around and make sure it's useful. So that's it. It's in a nutshell. I have my contact information. Give Mark or myself a call. We'd love to meet with you. If there are any questions, I'll take them right now, or we can meet later. Anna's leaving. Did I say something wrong, Anna?
No, I was waiting until you were done.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. All right, there's two resolutions for passage. They'll be voted on through email for all the members. And with that, we're at the open discussion segment of the meeting. Anything for discussion? All right, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.